Welcome to a journey through time and sound. We are standing in the heart of Vienna, where over a century ago, a man who could no longer hear the world around him decided to speak to it one last time. Ludwig van Beethoven's Symphony No. 9 is not just music, it is a declaration of human resilience. Can a soul find joy in total silence? Today, we find out. The atmosphere in 1824 Vienna was one of intense anticipation and political suppression. Beethoven, isolated by deafness, was the enigma to the public. We see the Kärntner Tortheater, where the premiere would change the course of music. The archaeological evidence from his residence shows a man living in creative chaos, surrounded by the silence that would eventually birth the world's most famous melody. This first section sets the stage for the miracle to come. The scripture of this work is Friedrich Schiller's Ode to Joy. Beethoven carried these words in his soul for 3 decades. The archaeological record of his sketchbook shows he began grappling with these verses in the 1790s. This section explores the Enlightenment ideals of liberty and brotherhood that served as the foundational text for the Ninth Symphony. The poem was a subversive call to unity in an age of monarchical control. The problem was total, devastating deafness. By 1820, Beethoven was completely isolated from the sounds he created. This section uses historical data to describe the physical and psychological toll of his condition. We examine the conversation books, which served as his only link to society. The struggle was not just personal, but artistic, how to bridge the gap between his internal vision and the external orchestra. He was a man fighting for every note in a world that had gone quiet. The gospel is the symphony itself. It is a 4-movement journey from the void to the divine. We analyze the revolutionary inclusion of the choir, a moment that shattered symphonic tradition. In the 4th movement, the baritone's voice enters as a herald of joy. This section provides detailed historical evidence of the premiere, where Beethoven, unable to hear the music, had to be turned around to see the standing ovation. It is a message of hope and universal brotherhood that remains the good news of classical music. How do we apply this joy today? The Ninth Symphony has been the anthem of global unity for 2 centuries. It has been played at the fall of walls and the birth of new eras. This section explores how the Ode to Joy has been used to challenge oppression and celebrate human connection. It is a living artifact that continues to shape our cultural identity. From Japan's Daiku tradition to the anthem of the European Union, its application is universal and profound. This is the climax. The final prestissimo is a sonic representation of the infinite. Beethoven didn't just write a symphony, he wrote a roadmap to the divine. This section captures the intensity of the finale, where the music reaches a state of pure transcendence. It is the moment where the struggle of the previous 19 minutes resolves into a shout of pure, unadulterated joy, a moment that continues to move the human heart 200 years later. As the music fades, we are left with a decision. Will we choose joy? The legacy of Beethoven is a call to action. We must decide to bridge the gaps between us, to hear the joy even in the silence. This is the final step in our academic journey, the realization that the Ninth Symphony is a mirror held up to our own humanity. The choice to believe in brotherhood belongs to each of us. The logistics of the 1824 premiere were a nightmare of coordination. Beethoven insisted on a massive orchestra, far exceeding the standard size of the day. The Kärntner Tortheater had to be specially prepared to accommodate over 100 performers. Stock records from the theater archive indicate that the cost for candles and sheet music copying alone were staggering, nearly bankrupting the production before the first note was played. Beethoven's hearing aid collection, now largely preserved in the Beethoven House in Bonn, represents a tragic archaeological record of his decline. He tested dozens of different trumpets, some made of wood, others of brass, each failing to pierce the silence. These objects are not just tools, they are the physical manifestation of his isolation, proving that the music of the Ninth was conceived in a world where sound was a memory, not a reality. The role of Archduke Rudolf, Beethoven's student and patron, was critical during the composition of the Ninth. Letters between the two men reveal a deep intellectual bond. Rudolf provided the financial stability and political protection that allowed Beethoven to ignore the prevailing trends of Italian opera and pursue his grand symphonic vision. Their correspondence is a primary source for understanding the composer's philosophical shifts during his late period. The first movement, Allegro ma non troppo, un poco maestoso, begins with a sense of cosmic uncertainty. The use of open fifths creates a void that is slowly filled with a powerful rhythmic theme. Musicologists point to the 130 sketches for this movement as evidence of Beethoven's relentless drive to create a sense of inevitability. The sheer scale of the development section was unprecedented in 1824. The second movement is a revolutionary scherzo that features a prominent role for the timpani. This was a bold move that challenged the traditional hierarchy of orchestral instruments. The rhythmic drive is relentless, a whirlwind of energy that contrasts sharply with the preceding tragedy. Historical accounts describe the audience being electrified by this movement, demanding an encore immediately upon its conclusion. The third movement, Adagio molto e cantabile, is perhaps the most lyrical and profound music Beethoven ever wrote. It is a set of variations that seem to suspend time itself. The archaeological evidence of his sketchbooks shows that he struggled to find the right melody for the second theme, eventually arriving at a tune that feels like a divine benediction. This movement provides the emotional core of the symphony. The fourth movement opens with what Wagner called the terror fanfare, a chaotic, dissonant blast that shatters the serenity of the Adagio. It is a moment of crisis where the orchestra seems to search for a way forward. This fanfare serves as a musical bridge, clearing the way for the human voice to enter and resolve the conflict through the message of joy. The social hierarchy of 1820s Vienna was rigidly controlled by the aristocracy and the secret police. Despite this, music was a common language that bridged the gap between the classes. Beethoven's Ninth was performed for an audience that included both dukes and laborers, creating a rare moment of social cohesion. The city's coffee houses were hotbeds of discussion about his latest controversial works. Under the Metternich regime, every word published in Austria was subject to intense censorship. Beethoven's choice of the Ode to Joy was a calculated risk, as the poem's message of universal brotherhood was seen as potentially subversive. He had to navigate a complex web of political allegiances to ensure his work reached the public without interference from the state. The acoustics of the Kärntner Tortheater were renowned throughout Europe. The wooden structure and shallow stage created a warm, resonant sound that was ideal for Beethoven's dense orchestration. Historical floor plans show that the theater's design allowed for a direct connection between the performers and the audience, enhancing the emotional impact of the premiere in 1824. The conversation books are a unique archaeological resource, providing a one-sided view into Beethoven's daily interactions. Because he could not hear, his visitors had to write their questions and comments in these notebooks. They reveal his concerns about everything from the quality of his wine to the complex financial arrangements for the Ninth Symphony's publication. They are a window into his private world. The Napoleonic Wars had left Vienna a changed city, both physically and psychologically. The constant threat of invasion and the economic instability of the era created a population that was hungry for a message of peace and unity. Beethoven, who had once admired Napoleon as a champion of liberty, felt the weight of this era in his soul, and the Ninth Symphony was his response to the chaos of his time. The evolution of the Ode to Joy theme in Beethoven's sketchbooks is a masterclass in artistic persistence. We can see him refining the simple melody over several years, stripping away ornaments until only the pure, iconic tune remained. This archaeological evidence proves that his greatest ideas were not lightning bolts of inspiration, but the result of rigorous, painstaking labor. Throughout the 19th century, the Ninth Symphony became a symbol of national identity across Europe. It was played to commemorate victories, mourn losses, and celebrate the birth of nations. Its message was versatile enough to be adopted by various political movements, yet it always retained its core promise of human joy and unity. it became the yardstick by which all other symphonies were measured. The first performances of the Ninth Symphony outside of Europe were major cultural events. In America, and eventually in Asia, the work was seen as a bridge to Western classical tradition. These early global tours were arduous and expensive, but they cemented the symphony's status as a universal masterpiece. The historical records of these performances show a worldwide fascination with Beethoven's achievement. The archaeological sites in Bonn related to Beethoven's youth, such as his birthplace on Bongasse, provide essential context for his later work. The city's vibrant intellectual life and its connection to the Rhine influenced his early development. By studying these sites, we can trace the roots of the revolutionary spirit that would eventually reach its peak in the Ninth Symphony in Vienna. Beethoven was deeply influenced by the grand choral traditions of Handel and the contrapuntal mastery of Bach. In the Ninth Symphony, particularly in the complex fugues of the final movement, we can see him paying homage to these earlier masters, while simultaneously pushing the boundaries of what choral music could achieve. This section explores the musical lineage of the work. The technical challenges for the choir in the 1824 premiere were extreme. Many singers complained that the parts were too high and nearly impossible to sing. Beethoven, being deaf, had lost touch with the physical limitations of the human voice. Yet, it is precisely this straining for the impossible that gives the finale its sense of ecstatic effort and ultimate triumph. They were singing at the very edge of human capability. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary journey through the world's most beloved classics. May the spirit of Beethoven's Ninth bring you peace and inspiration. I wish you many blessings on your path. 구독과 좋아요를 눌러주세요. 감사합니다.